UNC basketball has a perception problem. I still hesitate to say the problem is tangible, like it's actually there, but that almost doesn't matter because if everyone believes it is, then that's a problem, right? If you have a restaurant and you make delicious food, but everybody in the world thinks your food gets people sick, it doesn't matter how delicious your food is. People aren't going to walk in that door because they think it's going to make them sick. Perception is reality. Ian Jackson, 5-star, top 10 recruit in the country, played his freshman year this past year at UNC. Had a stretch where he scored 25 on average through like 7 games in the middle of the season. Other than that, off the bench, his usage fluctuated up and down greatly. Didn't get to play a ton towards the end. Ian Jackson transferred, hit the portal, St. John's. Soon as he hit the portal, everybody knew he was going to St. John. Rick Pitino wanted him. He's from that part of the country. He's from New York. It all made sense. Ian Jackson also has a YouTube show. How 2025 is this? It's called The Captain Jack Show, which is kind of his nickname. And on that show, he talked about his experience at Carolina, and alarms started going off for Tar Heel fans, or at least they should have. Here's Ian Jackson on his Captain Jack Show.
I feel like at Carolina, shout out to those guys though, too. Great people, not embarrassing, but I feel like at Carolina, it wasn't for me. It was some things that I couldn't show or I couldn't do on the floor that I felt like I could have done. But it was a step in the it's a journey.
Right
it's a journey. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, bro, just different opportunity.
There's that part in the middle that I'm going to focus on. But it was nice of him, by the way, to say, like, the people were great. Shout out to him. Like, this isn't him saying, like, I hated life.
Yeah, didn't go full-blown, like, bulletin board material in Carolina athletics.
But this is the quote. It was some things I couldn't show, I couldn't do on the floor that I feel like I could have done. That is an issue. Now, if that's a one-off, that's a disgruntled former player, that's somebody that bummed out that it didn't work out and he's not going to, get his jersey in the rafters next to Jordan, that's one thing. But pair that with what Drake Powell said at the NBA Combine, and I have that quote here for you. Drake Powell, another 5-star freshman that spent this past year at UNC, he didn't hit the transfer portal, he hit the NBA draft. And what he had to say was this: I feel like I'm the same two-way player that I was coming into college. Obviously, I don't think I got to showcase that at UNC, but the potential is still there. I'm ready to learn as much as I can and continue to grow. That's 2 separate high 5-stars, who, by the way, high 5-stars, they're expecting, like, I'm going to have the option to go pro very, very quickly. Obviously, Ian Jackson not going pro. Drake Powell is going pro, but if again, talking about those NBA big boards, he is the 31st best prospect on ESPN's prospect rankings. He is the 34th on the latest edition of the Athletics prospect rankings. So he is a borderline first, second round pick, according to those insiders. You can take it with a grain of salt if you agree or not agree with them. That's what ESPN and the Athletic are saying. That's an issue. That's an issue. That multiple very, very talented players, McDonald's All-Americans, the crown jewels of their recruiting class, had 1 year at UNC, and both of them are saying, I wasn't able to show what I can do at UNC. Now, yes, this is a different world. If this were 1941, who cares if you can show what you can do? It's about winning. It's about sacrificing for the team. It's about doing what the team needs you to do. Ask not what the team can do for you, but ask what you can do for the team. I went a little John F. Kennedy there. My point is, if very, very highly rated prospects think if they go to UNC, they won't be able to have a bit of a personal showcase. They won't be able to show the NBA what they can do. They won't be able to show the world what they can do. They're going to stop going to UNC. By the way, whether it is true or not, you might say, hey, Ian Jackson wasn't that good or Drake Powell wasn't that good. You may say that. And I'm not saying you're wrong, right? It's actually hard to tell how good they were because their roles were not super big this past year. Their usage was not super heavy this past year, right? It's a chicken or the egg. Maybe their usage was low because they're not that good, and the coaches looked at it and said, you're not that good, your usage is going to be low. Maybe their usage was low, and despite them being good, they didn't get to show they were good. It's a chicken or the egg. I'm not here to say what's true and what's not. I'm here to say it doesn't matter what's true and what's not. Because if other prospects think if you go to UNC, you won't be able to show yourself, you won't be able to build your pro prospects, they won't go.
It's all about that national footprint, right, that you think of when you see the UNC basketball logo, especially the Jordan logo specifically. You want people to think of that when it comes to recruiting, not Ian Jackson, Drake Powell, two guys that are now playing the NBA, said that they couldn't develop well and during their time there.
And athletes listen to athletes more than anybody. Right? It's why it's so important to have a great relationship with your alumni. It's why it's so important when if you're a high school coach out there, get a college player to come back and talk to your team, because you can sit there and say it as a coach a million different ways. You need to work hard. You need to eat right. You need to do this. You need to show up for workouts. But if the college player who's living the dream of these high school players comes back and says, this is what you need to do, they will hear it more. Ian Jackson and Drake Powell were the cool older guys in Team USA when they were on the U17 team and the other great prospects were on the U15 team. They were looking up to those guys. If they say, I don't know, I didn't get to show what I can do at UNC, they're not going to go. And again, I didn't intentionally do this to talking about Con Knippel rising up draft boards in the Dean's List and going right into this thing, but Duke and UNC are always going to be compared, right? They're joined by history and geography and success. They're joined in a billion different ways. Con Knippel showed up and his NBA draft stock went up. Kaman Malawa showed up and his NBA draft stock went up. Obviously, Cooper Flagg showed up with the highest of draft stocks and it kind of stayed there. But then Jackson and Powell goes the other direction. If you don't fix it, it's going to continue to be an issue. And there are ways that a healthy program, can have individual goals as well, right? I remember it was a big deal when Kentucky under John Calipari, and we're talking right at the early parts, started having a pro day. They started having a day where all the scouts could come and they would put their players through drills, and even players with eligibility left. Right? It wasn't just the graduating seniors. They would let everybody come through and they would put almost like a combine together because they recognized that there could be an I scratch your back, you scratch my back situation. Right? Calipari was saying, while you're on campus, let's try to win a national championship. I get paid off that. Also, while you're here, I'll get you ready for the NBA. You get paid off that. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. It can't be one-way transactions. Ian Jackson saying there were some things I couldn't show on the floor at UNC, and Drake Powell saying I didn't get to showcase the things I can do at UNC. That's now two's an issue. Two is an issue. Now it might not be an issue if that's not your goal. And what I mean by that is if your goal is to go find a bunch of 3 and 4 stars that you want to be on campus for 4 years and you want to develop them and you want them to be great college players and you're not chasing the super duper top end unbelievable NBA talent, cool, right? That's one way to handle it, right? I'll use this example. UVA under Tony Bennett. Guess who was never going to commit to UVA under Tony Bennett? Somebody that scored 35 points per game in high school. Because if you were an up and down, want to score a lot, they're going to try to make every game 49 to 53. It's just not going to line up. But that never bothered Tony Bennett because he was going, I don't want score. If you have to score 35 points a game, I don't want you because you don't fit what I do. I just find it difficult that UNC doesn't want the 5 stars. Right? And why wouldn't they? They can go get them. They have the money, right? We talked about Inside Carolina's report, what was it, last week, that their roster budget was up to $14 million. They have the money. They have the street cred for being Carolina, for having Jordan and Vince Carter and Antoine Jameson and Rasheed Wallace and on and on and on. And Kenny the Jet Smith, who, by the way, is super famous, and he's on ESPN all the time now, and he was on TNT. Like, they have the street cred. And I don't know why I picked those 5. I could have mentioned 100 other alum for UNC. But you have to nip this in the bud. You can't have these conversations going on in AAU gyms all across the country. Ian Jackson and Drake Powell were 2 of the stars, right? If you're an AAU coach, you see Ian Jackson, tear up the EYBL circuit or the Peach Jam or whatever the big AAU tournaments are, and guess what you're talking about now? Man, did you see what UNC did to Jackson? Now, I saw him put up 40 and blah, 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 and I saw him roast so-and-so in a game 2 years ago. I saw him do all this stuff. He went to UNC. He was coming off the bench. You see what UNC's doing? I don't know. I'm not sending my point guards there. And they're talking about it because that's what you do. College basketball, or AAU basketball especially, nationwide, right? Worldwide. Small world, right? It is a small world. The elite teams talk. This is where Hubert Davis, again, nip it in the bud, right? When you first call a recruit, we're going to get you ready for the NBA. I promise you. I played, if I'm Hubert, I'm saying I played whatever it was, like 15 years in the league. I know how to get there. I've got friends. You got to get that out of your mouth first. First thing.